All right, this is Shannon Port, and I thought this was being recorded privately, but it looks like it might be on a live stream. So um, apparently it's on live. So I had planned on recording this as a pre-recorded video, but I just hit play, and it looks like the YouTube platform put it on as a live stream. So welcome. This is Shannon Port, and I welcome you to our live stream today, which is the Solar Feminine Activation Codes for February 2020. And I'm curious to see if anybody comes on, because I definitely had it set as a private video. I was going to record it and then release it. So what we're here to do today, this is our second Solar Feminine Activation of 2020. This was an addition to this platform that I added in January. I announced it back in the fall, and we did our first video actually on January 17th. And it's funny because I looked at the date, and here we are exactly 1 month later on February 17th. And today's topic that we're going to be looking into is the law of love. And so I created this space as a way to come on and talk about, through the lens of the divine feminine wisdom, which is what the work on the platform Art of the Feminine is all about, to use it as a way to come on and really use the lens of that wisdom to talk about the initiations that we're taking as a humanity in the collective, and the activations that are happening, and really the spiritualizing of human consciousness, the upgrade that's happening for all humanity right now. Even though we're all experiencing it at many different levels, using the archetypal wisdom can be of huge creative benefit, just to kind of activate those packets of information in your psyche, in your consciousness, and give you the power to navigate all the shifts that are happening right now. So it doesn't look like anyone's come on. So now I'm wondering if perhaps it's not a live stream. I think if maybe it's not. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're talking about the law of love. And we are going to look, this is how I decided to do it. We're using the art, so we'll do one Solar Feminine activation each month. And then I also do the live streams with the new moon and the full moon transits. We're going to use the archetypal information that's really on front and center for the month. And that's what we'll use for the Solar Feminine activations. So what we're going to be looking at today, the law of love, we're going to be looking at the power of the heart. We just had the Leo full moon around Valentine's Day. And so that activated the fiery heart, the heart of courage and strength, the heart of being center stage, the heart of going out into the world and being seen. And then right after the Leo full moon, we're going to later on this week, and I'll be doing a live stream for that, we're having the Pisces New Moon. The Pisces New Moon is another heart energy. It's divine love. So the Piscean New Moon is activating an internal, more of an internal depth of love, and it's a watery love. It's a love that emanates from the subconscious mind. And so that's what we're going to use to look at these archetypes today. And so, all right, so let's dive in. I wanted to say also that Art of the Feminine is on social media. We're on as Art of the Feminine, both on Facebook and Instagram. I get asked that a lot because it's not under Shannon Port. If you want to join us on social media, you can find us on Art of the Feminine. All right, so let's just take a look at the energy of Pisces. We have the Pisces New Moon coming later this week. I'll be talking more about the transits when I do the live stream. But for right now, we're going to look at I think this is really deep archetypal information that has a lot to do with the woundedness and the victim consciousness that really was seeded into the human race. So when we look at Pisces, it's interesting. Before I sat down, I just started to jot out some of the words that came to mind for Pisces, and I had written a whole page before I'd even start. I started with the negative side, the shadow side, and I had so many words before. I filled an entire page before I even got to the positive. Pisces is the 12th house, and it represents the hidden depths of the subconscious mind, The archetype is the dark moon in the major arcana. It is the dark moon is key 18, and it represents the underbelly of human consciousness. It's closely associated to energies that we associate with Lilith, and we're going to be talking about Lilith today because she's making a really powerful conjunction with Chiron. That is, dark moon Lilith is conjuncting Chiron at the time of the Pisces New Moon. So that's really powerful to talk about. But it holds Pisces holds suspicion. It holds fear, not only fear, but it holds terror. It's the deep, deep, profound fears that we hold in our subconscious mind that are actually creating much of our reality. We're at the stage of growth in humanity and human consciousness where we're trying to really transmute and take it to the next level, where we have so much fear, we have so much suspicion, we have so much conspiracy, we have so much terror that we project into the outer in this kind of soulless shadow world that creates these holograms that then beam back to us the very thing that we have, the very fears that we project out end up coming back to us, and the very elements that we are meant to rule over, we end up vivifying with these imaginary thought forms, and then they end up ruling over us. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that happens. But Pisces is also associated with the chaos of the unknown. It's associated with a tortured artist, and I'm going to talk about why. Tortured artist, addiction, depression, Neptunian underworld, deception, manipulation, fallen human consciousness, what's locked up and hidden from the world, being locked up, being in isolation, being in fear. It's connected to the dark side of the moon, the demonic, the satanic, the uncontrolled urges, the uncontrolled sexual urges that may even be on the dark side of that are on the dark side of the spectrum. Those like impulsive, dark thoughts that we all have buried within, that are acting upon us, even though sometimes we think we've done all our work and we're living in this righteousness and this purity. Oftentimes those thought forms are preying on our belief that we can control them and push them aside or keep them at bay. And so we're going to talk about that. It also rules abuse, exploitation, and mental illness. So that shows you when we're looking at the shadow of this energy of the subconscious. It's holding a lot. It's what we mean when we're talking about the shadow, even the Jungian shadow, or the body of pain. This is the archetype that truly holds that. But it also, because like all things in creation, there's a polarity of shadow and light. The light side of Pisces is 18 is actually the number of Christ consciousness, of the Christic consciousness, which is that unity of light and of the logos power. And I'll talk about what I mean by that as we go. But the logos is the living word. It's the living, breathing fabric of creation. And so when we come into the Christic consciousness, we become unified with that, with what is our true power. We begin to reclaim our creative power. And that's why Pisces is associated with artists, and it's associated with the creative imagination. That's that Neptune energy that's able to go into the depths and have access to the very most profound poetry, art, painting, music, all of the performing arts, all of the fine arts, as well as even as the wisdom and the music and the poetry, even as it comes through in the sciences. That Pisces is the gateway to that. And so that's why the Piscean energy is very much about the artist. We want to talk about the tortured, wounded artist, or the starving artist archetype, because that falls under Pisces, and we're healing that, because that's an archetype that we're really done with. We're going to talk about how to heal that. Pisces is divine love. It's the ultimate forgiveness of the unforgivable. It's non-judgment. It's the annihilation of judgment. And it's the transmutation of the body of pain and the shadow into the light body consciousness. So Pisces is actually the how we build our body of light. And just a reminder again, the reason I'm using Pisces right now for the solar feminine activation is because we're going through and we're using the archetypal energies of the zodiac, but talking about how we spiritualize them, how we transmute them, and how we ignite them with the Christ force so that we can. 12 is the number of the zodiac, and 12 is also the number of the great work in alchemy. We're really transmuting the zodiac by opening a new channel within the zodiac that helps us to resurrect it into its true template of the universal Christic force, but the healing of the masculine and feminine. So let's just take a moment to look at that. Pisces archetypes. Another Pisces archetype is the number 12. 12 is the 12th house, but 12 is also in the archetypes. It's the number of Neptune, and Neptune is the ruler of this energy. Neptune, when we look at the 12, we're looking at a 1 and a 2, which represent the magician and the high priestess. So we have already, we see that it's the integration. You think of even the Vesica Pisces, those two circles overlapping. We have the feminine and the masculine as they overlap and they open that portal into the vertical Christ force, which activates the Trinity consciousness. So here we have it. It's all right there. 12 is 1 plus 2. Magician plus high priestess equals the Empress and equals the Trinity. It equals the divine power of the heart and the dreaming principle. How we dream. Pisces is associated with dream time. It's so vast, that when we open up this archetypal wisdom, it's so vast. And this is, if you haven't, if you're not familiar with my work, I have about, I don't know, between 52 and maybe 65 podcasts on the divine feminine wisdom in the playlists on this channel. And so I've done an hour podcast on each archetype, which is a nice introduction to them. But this wisdom, and it's through the lens of the divine feminine. That was my intention when I set out to create this, the Art of the Feminine podcast. But when we look at this and when we learn to read the language of the divine feminine, we're able to understand it opens up books of wisdom, and we realize that we have it all. We have everything we need. We have the divine image already. It's already been imprinted in our soul. Our soul is our consciousness, and our consciousness is in the heart. It's the subconsciousness is in the heart as well. The soul energy it's in our entire being, but not even just our physical heart. There's an etheric heart, which represents our soul. And so when we're talking about the solar feminine, we're talking about the marriage of the spirit with the soul, which activates sacred union, and it lights up the entire blueprint. So what I wanted to say is that when we we awaken vision. Through this allowing, we awaken vision. When we learn to truly see, and I've had this experience, so I'm speaking from my very own experience. When we have the experience of awakening, we begin to understand that we live in a world of shadows and shadow forms that's been projected from our lower creative faculties. But when we really come into the heart is the only true vision. The heart is the synthesis of the above and the below. It's the mediator. And so when Pisces activates the heart, when we can even see it by the number 12, when we're able to see, we see beyond the shadow forms and into the pulsing reality, which is, we could think of it as the quintessence force, but it's really the solar feminine. It's the light behind the form that is very much alive and responding to our heart, to our feelings, and to our sense of surrender that we find when we work with this energy. And See, I'm not sure how long I've been on. We're not going to go too much longer, but I want to get into some of these because I want to activate it and leave you with the information that can unlock this, archetype. So everything is pulsing light. And I'm not just saying that. That's not a new age cliche to say that. When you have the experience and and I've seen it, when you know what you are and when you know what's really the field that you are in, and that it's completely responding to the nucleus of who you are. It's the center point in the wheel. It's the wand. It's the vertical point, which connects the above and the below. You will understand, first of all, how to spin the elemental wheel and how to create, which is something that we need to learn in humanity. Humanity is living in a victim consciousness and a poverty consciousness. It's the opposite of what we are. We're living in the complete and utter removal of our divine inheritance, which is purely creative. Pisces represents the artist, and that's what we are. We're all the artists of our lives, but we have to own it. We really have to own it. We have to be accountable to how we use this force every moment of every day. All things worth having take practice. There's times when we say, I just have it, but that's not so. And we can see it because we wouldn't be in the world we were in if we all just had it. Like any skill that we learn, we have to harness and hone our skills. If you want to be a musician, if you want to be ready to play a concert, you have to practice every day. If you're a painter, if you're a writer, if you're a singer, you have to hone your skill. You have to practice your craft. If you're an actor, we have those moments which are divine luck, but in order to be able to consistently show up, we have to put some time in. And so this is why we come to podcasts like this or anything that inspires us over and over again. It keeps us in the frequency of the knowledge of who we really are. The Piscean gift is to go inward and to surrender. In order to access this fabric of light that's responding to us and become the divine artists that we are, we have to be able to reverse and invert our already inverted perception. We need to reverse our inverted perception and bring it into truth. Pisces represents truth. So the hangman represents the letting go of what we think, all of the shadow forms that we've created, all of the noise on the outside, all of the opinions, all of the things that are being beamed at us night and day. So much. Every time we latch on to even one of those, we begin to create that reality. We have to go inward and access the true well. The true well is where the archetypes rise up and they give us new insight and they help us to project our divine image onto the screen of consciousness. This is the interplay between masculine and feminine. This is the interplay between the inner and the outer. Without that turned on inside you, you are a victim of the shadow forms that are giving you a false image. So let's talk about the dark moon for a moment. The dark moon. So when we're talking about the lunar principle and the dark moon is really inside of us. It's that part of ourself that we can't see, and we're living in the lunar principle because we're being driven by uncontrollable forces and urges and fears and projections that we don't even realize are there. And so in order to understand them, we have to allow ourselves to go in and let go of the world, because what happens is when we create from that place, this is how it works. We'll give it in just a few short sentences. We project our shadow forms onto the screen. They don't have soul energy, but because we vivify them with our own feelings, we put our own soul energy into them. And then they come back and turn on us because we don't have the awareness of what we have created. When we are unconscious creators, we create our own bondage. And that is the deep sorrow, pain, and suffering of this archetype. To be bound and believe that you are being attacked without any inner, being privy to your own God creative power that has given life to forms that are the opposite of who you really are. In other words, you're giving life to fear. Now, there is a force of fear that has a soul, and there's a force of fear that's part of creation, and that force becomes, when we understand it, the great initiators of the soul, because those forces push us so hard that they push us into awakening and realizing who we really are. There are fallen forces that have soul energy and that misuse it, and that, depending on where we're at, they can have their way with us or not. But what they really try to do is to get us to produce our own creations that are our children, that don't have the true light, the divine spark inside them. All right, so the artist, when we create and when we open that Neptune energy, what happens is that we start to go in and receive beauty, because there's so much beauty available to us. We're all meant to be able to create with high level beauty, creativity. We can all create whatever we want. By the way, the reason we have forgiveness and non-judgment, there's over 7 billion people on the planet. There's over 7 billion timelines. There's over 7 billion worlds. For every person here has their own world that they've created. There is a collective world as well. And we have all these lower dimensions of worlds that we've created together. And so eventually we're unifying and coming into divine love. But for right now, we each need to, it's like the saying, if you want to save someone who's drowning, you have to know how to swim. If you're on an airplane and all of a sudden there's no oxygen in the cabin, you're not going to go around and put masks on everybody else. You're going to put your own mask on. I've used this before, but it's so powerful. And then you will be able to serve. So we have to attend to ourselves. Accountability is part of the victim. Until you take accountability, you will be a victim to all kinds of illness, demonic, satanic forces, which are forces that misuse the mind and bring us into doubt, that bring us into suspicion, that bring us into fear, that make us lose faith and lose hope. That's what the demonic is. All it has to do is convince you to turn on your own power, and that happens. So we have our shadows, and so just to be very kind and in the heart about it, we all have to acknowledge. We have to go through our dark night, and we have to feel those things deeply and grieve those things very deeply. It's very, very painful. Very painful. But as we start to regenerate, once we give a voice to those things, all of a sudden something very magical happens. So this is what happens with the artists. Oftentimes the artists that haven't healed will access these great, profound revelations, put them on the canvas, put them into the world via sound. And by the way, the solar light that's all around us is music. It's sound. When you first see it, you will also hear it. It's singing. It's the logos, it's the divine word that makes a sound. So when we put those creations out, immediately following, because we live in duality, the pain arises. That's why we have the archetype of the tortured artist and the starving artist, because what happens is after we create, the fear rises right behind it. And so a lot of people who are creatives, and I know this, I myself am a creative, find they need to medicate. So that's why you hear so many artists that have deep, deep, deep addictions. Think of all the drug use in the music industry and in the art industry and in Hollywood even, that a lot of times creative people become tortured souls because they don't know what to do with after they create. I've seen this, and I have many, many artist friends, so I know the pattern. I've seen it. I know it very well. Creation and then self-hatred or self unworthiness, feeling like you don't deserve it. So worthiness is huge right now, or feeling like you don't deserve to be compensated or even reciprocated for what you put in the world. This is huge. This is something that on my platform, I'm going to be bringing in very, very, very powerfully in the years to come, because we are abolishing poverty consciousness on this planet. Right now, we're in a financial system that The logistics of the system aren't fair, but if you access this wisdom, it will not matter. You will be able to put your own mask on and then go on and help others put their mask on. We, as artists and creatives, even spiritual healers, everybody is meant to receive sustenance for their gifts. All of life is reciprocal. And so the hangman shows us when you surrender, everything comes to you. When you surrender and allow yourself to give and create, the universe gives back to you, whether it's through the financial, whether it's through love, whether it's through material wealth, whatever it is. That this is something that we are going to master as humans. It's going to take a little work because with such great of wounds, we have a fear of abundance. There's definitely materialism. We all know that. There's materialism and there's the misuse of that, which corrodes the soul. But the true use of abundance is to keep uplifting, and keep sharing. As you receive, you always give out. As you give out, you always receive. Giving and receiving are one. And that this archetype teaches us that. So we need to heal the artist. We need to heal the starving artist. We need to heal the addicted, tortured artist. This is what happens. After you create, you need to sit with it. And it's at that very moment when the dark gate opens and the demons begin to come out that you need to have a practice to own it. Put it into the art if you have to, but own it. And, as you strengthen, refuse to give in to the self-sabotaging, self-hurting habits. The outer world encourages these habits. Oh boy, we're going to keep talking. And when I'll put, when we do the Pisces New Moon live stream this week, probably on Thursday, we'll talk more about that. But the outer world is just one big beaming of messages until you learn to see it properly. The outer world is triggering every addiction, every insecurity, every fear, every competition, every poverty consciousness that we have. And it creates suspicion. And then we begin to look for the outer boogeyman. Not to say that there isn't an outer dark. There's absolutely an outer dark. And there's even meant to be an outer dark. But let me just see how this is meant to come in. What we look at and fixate on gains access to us. Every time you make a line of perception with something, that something makes a line of perception with you. What you look at can access you. Anyone who works in dream time or the astral will know this. Whatever you are working with will inevitably come into your dream time. And I know it's just this, we could go on and on about this, but the astral can be a dangerous place we need to learn how to work with these energies and be in our solar light, be in our solar power. Pisces births the solar power and it actually births the body of light. It's the 12th sign and it's the 12th house. And it's the reason it's connected with the Christic energy. And there's a lot of talk about 13 signs. And at some point, I'm going to do a video on that and explain how I see the 13th sign. But for right now, I just want to say that the 12th sign is hugely powerful, and it's the final initiation of the wheel. It's our final. If you're taking your initiation in Pisces, you're ready to completely wake up and own the zodiac. All right, so I'm going to see if there's anything else I want to put in here. We're purifying with divine love. I just want to say forgiveness. How we speak about others is everything. I can't say this enough. Any gossip or slander, anything we wish for another human being, even if we think we're wishing justice upon them, will come to us. So if we haven't cleared something inside us, if we wish it upon another, it will be a fast track to wishing that same thing upon our own being. This is the way creation works. How does that work with justice? Justice always starts inside our own being. It's the only place we have true dominion within us, because we actually begin to create the harmony in the outer field when we complete our own initiation of justice and balance and clearing. And so we have to be, the logos is that power that I just talked about. It's that in every time we say a word in a frequency that doesn't hold the truth, we access the dark light rather than, and I'm talking about the shadow side rather than the high creative energy of the Empress. And so we have to really become accountable how we speak about others. Every word is a mantra. Every word is a seed planted that has the potential to not only, it will grow a tree, but it has the potential to flower and bear fruit. And we, there's trees of life all within our being. We have to understand that as we speak it, so it is. As we believe it, so it is. What you believe is true for you because you are the creator of your reality. Okay, so this is all I'm going to say, and then I'm going to finish. I went longer than I was going to. This is what I want to talk about because I find this to be a really fun and good archetypal correspondence. It's coming at the Pisces New Moon, which we're going to be talking about later this week. But we have Black Moon Lilith conjunct Chiron at 3 degrees Aries. And this conjunction of Lilith and Chiron will also be squaring the nodal axis, and it will also be squaring Mars. So when we're looking at the dark moon Lilith and Chiron, we could really say it's an archetype for the union of Magdalene and Christ, the Mary Magdalene and the Christ. Dark moon Lilith has a deep correspondence with Magdalene in a certain state. Magdalene is the archetype of the soul that has not purified yet in her certain archetypal state, and then the Christ is the crucified, sacrificed primordial light on the skeleton of the human being. And so when these two come together and they're squaring the nodal axis, it's a huge, huge revelation of healing. It means that, truly the Magdalene archetype has already been resurrected. She is the solar feminine, and the Christic force has already risen as well. Time and eternity has already played out. We're within it, discovering that state of consciousness within our own reality. But this, I thought, was just a powerful, powerful Lilith, all of our underbelly, all of our wounds conjunct the healing forces of Chiron. And they're in Aries, which is giving us the I am power to really, really light it up. Aries in its truth is about I am. It's about healing, and it's about ownership of our own true power. It's the landing of the Christ force. All right. I think that's going to be all for right now. All creation is really love. It just depends if you know how to access it or not. Remember, we give life and we vivify and we ensoul the forces that come into our reality. You'll know that when you watch them drop in front of your very eyes. That's what I also want to say, that I work deeply with the creative imagination. And when you begin to understand this, that's why the devil is laughter. When you understand what the forces are, you'll begin to laugh, and you'll begin to understand also that we've played all these roles, and that suffering has been something that we've all been through. We're all going through, and we're learning with knowledge and with gnosis how to reclaim our true power. And so that being said, let's finish with I am. In the 7 directions, it's just a way to access the Star of David is really the union of masculine and feminine within ourselves. And so when we activate I am in the 7 directions, that's what we're calling upon. And so just repeating after me. I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And then you take a deep, deep, deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. Pin in your solar plexus. Stir up a little prana, connecting you to the great central sun. And then exhale it all out. And sealing it with I am, I am, I know I am, I am, I am, I know I am. All right. Wish you many blessings and namaste. I have an announcement to make. Um, so I am, if you're, for those who are interested, I haven't done private mentoring in almost a year. I've been working with groups, and I've been working with women's groups. The past winter and fall, we're in the middle of Light Body Woman, which is an 8-week group coaching platform, really powerful. We're in week 4. If you're still interested, you can contact me. I'll leave a link in the description box. But I'm going to be in March bringing in, possibly for the last time, the 3-month mentoring program where I take you through the divine feminine wisdom in a coaching format. This is going to be a really, really high level mentoring program. And so I've been doing this for years. And so as I've grown and as I've got deeper in my own work, the bar is getting higher and higher. And so for those people who are really, really interested in, there's no joking around here, at working on a really high level, I'll be opening this platform up for participants in March. And so if you're interested in doing the 3-month mentoring program with me, contact me. We can have a little interview and see if it's right for you. This is for people who are really ready to take accountability, apply the wisdom teachings in their life, and transmute and change and manifest. I mean, it's to really bring in the practical application, but also to receive the downloads of this wisdom, which is highly, highly creative. So that's all for now. I will see you this week for the Pisces New Moon live stream on Thursday. Namaste.